Paltrocast. I'm going to say good morning to you. It's still the morning out there on the West Coast, right?
Yes, indeed.
Cool. Well, good morning. Thank you for taking the time. Is this a good day so far, aside from doing press and, having to come back from vacation?
It's a great day. Slow start. Had an amazing trip. I've never been to Australia before. I went to Australia with my family, and it was incredible. Maybe the first time I've ever come, like at the end of a vacation, kind of wanted to stay on vacation. Usually I'm like, let's go back to work. Let's do it. And I'm always itchy creatively. I always want to, so I still had that, but this was the first time where I was like, woo, I kind of want to hang out still and not go home. So
when you're going on a vacation like that, I know it's a vacation and you're with family and all that, but do you take any kind of a recording rig or anything that if you had inspiration hit you that you could write on it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I usually do. I usually have something I can play with. In this case, I was very off the grid, living on a boat. I brought my laptop and I never opened it.
Got it. Now, in terms of boat studios, I know one of the Microsoft executive founder guys has a boat studio, and Duran Duran did an album on there. I'm assuming that you've never recorded on a boat.
No, I flirted with the idea doing something in Amsterdam on a boat. It's kind of, yeah, I think it's a more romantic notion than a real idea.
So
if I was going to do it, it'd probably be Amsterdam. I love Amsterdam.
Who doesn't love Amsterdam?
I think certainly plenty of boats. So
I think if you were going to go down the list of places that everyone loves to travel to, no one has anything bad to say about, they'll go Amsterdam, Japan, Canada. They're just
Japan's on my list.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't. Someday I'll get there. I haven't gotten there yet, but yeah.
Future trips. But hey, back to you and your greatness and your success and your undying creative itch and all that kind of stuff. So you make headlines again because the greatest hits, people talk about that. People love the soundtrack of that kind of thing. How long ago did you finish your work on the greatest hits?
We wrapped up right before the strikes hit, so it's been a minute since we finished. But once you complete a film, especially a film like this, it lives another life through its soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way things hit the picture, the way things go into the film for the movie, and the way things iterate on a soundtrack, whether it's a score album or a hybrid score album soundtrack or just a soundtrack, either way, there's work to be done following the film to prepare those materials and prepare those assets, and and like I said, with this movie, it's no exception. In fact, it's a good example of how a film can bloom beyond its it's what you see on screen. This soundtrack is super rad. The film centers around music and our characters, all of our characters' experience of music, but as our central character, Harriet, she experiences music metaphysically, and it's all tangled up with her experience of love and loss in a way. I think that even though there are sci-fi aspects for sure to this film, I think her experience of music is still one in which we can all relate.
Yeah, I think the way that you just described it, the movie High Fidelity did not have the sci-fi parts to it. Right. And at the same time, High Fidelity is more music snobbery. And this film is the exact opposite. There's no music snobbery to the fact that these songs are liked or loved.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's something about Ned Benson, the director and writer. He just has he has like a childlike love for music, something that I kind of struggle to hold on to, and through training and my there's something about my when you devote your life to studying music, you are always at risk of losing
Oh yeah.
that childlike love of music and the ways in which music hits you, apart from anything that you understand or anything that you can grasp cerebrally. So I admire that about Ned, and why he's also a really good collaborator. In the process of this film,
Hmm.
he was, he kept the emotional pulse, the frisson, the goosebumps, as the North Star, and where my job was technical and logistical, negotiating various, like a bunch of different pieces of music, and how my score can weave and interact with it in a way that is sensical, musically speaking, theoretically speaking. He was uncompromising with respect to its need to induce goosebumps, and so he was a good
Good.
partner.
Good uncompromising, because there can be bad uncompromising when it comes to film, as in the studio giving you notes that you can get around, and then there's good uncompromising because there's quality in mind, and it sounds like it's the latter one of those.
Yeah, and I think from a third party perspective, it definitely seemed like Ned had everyone's trust, across the board, studio and certainly actors. And I know from us, on the music side of things, speaking for myself as the composer, but also Mary Ramos, legendary music supervisor, who it was really like the three of us. Um, always working together, because
Sure.
the way in which the score and songs interlock, and the way in which music itself is such a central part of this film, it was kind of, it was a necessary process for all three of us to sort of be in the room a lot together, and chisel it out.
Yeah.
And whenever you're assembling a soundtrack for a score, I mean a soundtrack for a film, so source music, so music that already exists, whenever you're assembling that aspect of the music for a film, there's so many moving parts, and there's so many factors, everything from availability of files, to availability of the person you need to get permission from to use and license the
Right.
music, uh,
Clearances. Yeah.
clearances. So then it's like, well, if you have like, you know, 50 songs in a in a movie or whatever, however many there are in this movie, then you don't have infinite number of money. So then you're sort of negotiating a pot of money and trying to piece the puzzles
Yeah.
together. So it's always in flux. And so as that's in flux, and as my role was to be the glue that binds it together so often, it meant that I had to be very flexible in how I negotiated songs coming in and out, and sometimes different songs coming in and out of the same spot in the film as we were, piecing the puzzle together. It was
Yeah.
really fun. It was really fun. It was awesome.
Well, a different direction that I'm very curious in is you have success outside of the film and video game scoring space as Sun Lux, your
Mhm.
artist career and all that. And I'm finding most of the big people doing scoring these days come from record deals. They come from artist backgrounds. Whereas most of my favorite movies and TV shows from the 70s, 80s, 90s, even early 2000s were not written by people traditionally from record deals. So
Yeah,
was this
100%. Yeah. In fact, I think just yesterday, there was a variety piece that my manager sent where we are actually mentioned, because it sounds like the Academy is now going to recognize bands and groups, as individuals, in the awards process. So, or at least with respect to statuettes.
Mhm.
So we were, as a band, we were nominated for our work on, Everything Everywhere All at Once. We scored the film, and then uh, uh, David Byrne and I were also nominated for the song we wrote together for the end credits,
Mhm.
which is called "This Is a Life." That's performed by Mitski and us as a band and David Byrne. Going into the award ceremony, we actually found out we were the first band in history nominated for score. The last band who was nominated for something like it as a band was for a defunct, now defunct award called Best Original Song Score, and it was a band called the Beatles 50 years ago.
Was that for
Um,
Yellow Submarine or Help?
it was like for one, yeah, six for one of those. I don't even know. I just remember like learning that statistic during the campaign. And I was like, "What? That's crazy!" Like, but I was like, also like, wait, that doesn't really make sense because you have, to your point, you have all these folks, like just off the top of my head, I think about Trent and Atticus,
Yeah.
Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, who've won all kinds of awards together, and essentially are of course, it's not Nine Inch Nails, but it is. But I also kind of wonder, well, could it be Nine Inch Nails? And it's just and so now I think moving forward, it sounds like they're going to maybe partially with us as a president going to start to recognize bands as not just one thing, but actually, a collection of people. And so, had we won best score, we'd have 3 statuettes. Actually, I would have to say if we had one, I'd be pretty mad that like the next year they changed the rule. I'd be like, "Yo, where's my statue?"
Well, you can't
Although
win them
sharing a
all.
statue, sharing an Oscar, I'll do it. That's the worst things to share than an Oscar,
I'm still gonna call you,
especially if I got both of them. If I got song and score. Me and David Byrne have to swap around, and then me and my bandmates. I mean, am I really complaining about that? No.
well, regardless of that one, we would still call you BAFTA nominated Ryan Lott.
That's true. And yeah, Oscar nominated, BAFTA nominated. Those are things that are awesome and things that I totally never, totally never anticipated being true.
Yeah, so where I was going with all that is most of the people that I've spoken with who had the record deal or the traditional artist path that wound up on the being in demand kind of film, TV, scoring kind of space, usually it was an accident. Like they got one project and then it led to another. And then they realized, oh, I'm not on the road 200 days a year anymore. In your case, was it an accident or is this the thing that you actually wanted to do all along?
That's a great question. So what happened with me was that early in the development of the Sunlux project, which started as a solo project, I was also I'd pretty much made I was finished making my first record at War with Walls and Mazes, and then I got a job at a music house writing music for ads in
Oh,
New
oh
York.
no.
Yeah, and I did that full
Yeah,
time for 4 years while I was developing the Sunlux project.
yeah.
And during that period of time, that's when I really cut my teeth in the scoring space, writing literally thousands of small pieces of music for ads.
Yeah.
I'd write 1 to 6 pieces of music a day, start to finish, mixed, mastered, laid back the picture and everything. And it was an amazing 4-year long etude, basically. It was just like a really hard, really competitive job. And
Yeah.
I was working with great people and I learned so much. And
To rudely interrupt you, Ryan, when you talked about before about struggling to love music, it's because you worked at a music house like that where they went, we want something that sounds like Coldplay, but it's not Coldplay and it's different enough and we need it in 2 hours. Go.
so, I mean, on that note, one of the reasons I transitioned out of that space is because the work that I was developing, simultaneously, my Sunlux project started to, make its way into the hearts and minds of people in post production,
Sure.
and so I remember getting a call from a buddy in another music house, another composer, and he said, "Just got off a creative call, and the brief was you." why didn't they just call you? Um,
Gotta
and
save $2,500.
that was a big, well, that was a, yeah, that was a big like wake up call. Like, and it was like, yo, this job is amazing. I have my own space to work out of 24/7 in the heart of Manhattan. I have all these connections and, to great musicians. I have a really well equipped studio to work from. But in the end of the day, I'm kind of like, I'm like spending all my time and energy on like, you know, music for cereal box commercials. You know what I mean? And I'm really only using the dregs of my energy for Sunlux. Imagine if I was able to devote, more of my full attention to Sunlux. So back to your question, is like, how did I get into scoring? Started there, to be honest. It was that and writing music for dance, which is something I still love to do. Writing music for dance is a lot like scoring, and usually you're not in the room with the choreographer and all the dancers. So essentially, you are scoring picture. You're scoring recorded rehearsal video, and so those two together, between the very creative, often super low budget, but like high creative content kind of dance music for dance space, to like all the way to the ads, like preparation age commercials and stuff, which was like very rigorous, but in a different way.
Yeah.
I kind of like I was like ready to score film. And my first break, speaking of people who were successful and are successful making records who get into scoring, the so I'm sure you're familiar with M83.
Oh yeah.
Anthony Gonzalez, I believe is his name, Anthony Gonzalez. He was slated to score a film that a director named Ned Benson was creating, starring Jessica Chastain and James McAvoy. Also in the cast, Viola Davis, William Hurt. Awesome film, but a very small project because it was just it was a passion project for everybody.
Right.
He was slated to score it, and because of the schedule changes, he had to bow out. And we had the same film agent at the time who recommended me for it. Anthony vouched for me when asked by Ned, and I got on the phone with Ned, and the rest is history. My first feature was Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby, which was Ned's first film, and that was my first time working on my own score in feature film. I'd already started working on, as an arranger, as an instrument designer and performer, different feature scores. I worked extensively on the film Looper by the composer Nathan Johnson, who's a longtime friend and collaborator of mine, across many spaces, including his own music, his wife's music, my music videos. He's an incredibly talented director as well. He's cousin of Rian Johnson and has done all Ryan's movies except for Star Wars, of course. And so I learned a lot actually working for him, doing arrangements and watching him work. And he comes from a perspective he has no formal musical training, and so our two minds coming together is always really fun because we challenge each other, and I think in really the right ways. And so when it came time to start scoring my own stuff, I was ready. I've been through the ringer on a number of different fronts, but then working on Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby was great. So good. I wound up writing additional music inspired by the film, and made a record. Still at the time I was a solo project, so that the record Disappearance is music from and inspired by the Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby. And every once in a while, Ned would, over the years, would send me a kind of a flirtatious text about something he was working on, and came to a show of ours once at El Rey. It was probably back in, man, it was 2017 maybe, and was like, yeah, I'm working on this new idea. It kind of centers around music and not really sure exactly what it is yet, but you know, he's kind of dropping little hints. And then some point last year, I got a text and he said, want to do another one with me, buddy? I said,
Wow.
heck yeah, let's go.
And then bringing it all full circle, the first film, Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby, and you have broken the Oscars nomination process with since the Beatles about bands being nominated. So do the Beatles factor into a lot of things you do, or is just those two particular projects?
That's a good question. Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby was not about the Beatles, but Eleanor Rigby, the lead character, was
Named after.
Yeah, she was named after. I've actually never really listened to the Beatles, to be honest.
Well, okay. Well, one last question, and then I'll let you go, because now that I know you're not a Beatles guy, were you ever a metal or punk person? Where
Not
did you
really.
come from musically before you became this person that we know today?
Not really. You know what? My affinity, my early affinities when I was in high school, I went through a very, very brief, like, heavy rock and punk phase. Very brief. I switched to the drums from piano for 12 seconds, and but it's funk. So both in high school and in college, I was in bands where we wrote, and largely I wrote original funk music, and yeah, still definitely has a strong part of my heart, which is probably not something you can hear in the music that I create. But
No, funk is the opposite of scoring, where scoring is very precise, yet funk is kind of about feeling the things out and letting it grow and grow and grow and see where it goes.
Yep.
So Ryan Lott masters everything. That's what I'm learning when Ryan Lott works on it. Well, the bottom line is congrats on yet another wonderful project. I don't know why I pluralize, say, but via the greatest hits.
Well, there are a number of really exciting things in the works. So it's appropriate to say that. I'm
Sure.
pretty psyched about. I'm really proud of this film. I think Ned did a great job. I'm proud of Mary and I assembling the sound for it, of course, along with Ned. And I think the acting is amazing. I think the story manages to take your heart along with it, and I'm really proud of that. And I'm psyched for what's next, both for Ned and for us as a band. We have a, Greatest Hits was a solo thing for me, but as a band, we have some more scoring stuff lined up, as well as definitely new records. So,
and the best way to keep track of that, once the Hollywood Reporter and Variety embargoes are lifted, is that a personal Instagram? Is that the Sunlex social media? How do we find out about all the greatness?
Yeah, so we all, so Rafik Bhatia, Ian Chang, and me, Ryan Lott, we are Sunlux, and we each have our own Instagram pages. We gave up on Twitter after Elon ruined it, and we still have a Facebook page, but it's just kind of maintained. So
Sure.
Instagram is still the best way to find us. And then of course we have our band Sunlux, which is SON_LUX. And you can find us on Instagram there for sure.
Well, thank you for the many years of great art. Looking forward to what's to come, whether it is you as an artist, you as a scorer, etc. Thank you for being Ryan Lott.
Thank you.
Paltrocast.